My hairstylist really wants me to be alternative, and I feel like I'm serving today. Hey Hodies, welcome back to my channel. My name is hautemesstom, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today we're going to talk a little bit about brushes. So if you are new to my channel, I am currently collecting as many brushes from as many collections as I can, so I can do like a big brush recommendation video, a big brush review video, and so that it's all in the same place as a resource for me and for you. But I have noticed that with the most recent group of brushes that I got, a couple different brands sent me PR. I'm also going to buy some brushes too to round out my review here. But what I have noticed is that some of my preferences in brushes have shifted. So I've been testing a lot of brushes, and then something I think is the most important whenever we talk about makeup or brushes or tools or whatever is to talk about the ones that we reach for the most. If we look at all my foundations, whichever foundation I'm picking the most, that's going to be the one that I probably like the best because it's the one that I'm picking to wear the most. Now, I don't always have that luxury as someone who also reviews items too. Sometimes I have to like force myself to use things when I would rather use something else just to make sure that I like know my thoughts and feelings about it. We're going to talk about what brushes I was using and then what brushes I'm currently using now, the differences between them, and why my preferences have kind of changed. Let's start with foundation brushes. My longtime fave is the Sonia G Jumbo Base. It's not really been dethroned, but a couple of really good foundation brushes have come into the fold, which is great because that one thing that is a downside of this Sonia G brush is that after a couple of uses, it starts applying foundation not very well unless you're like cleaning it all the time. I clean my brushes like once every 2 weeks, so I do clean my brushes fairly regularly. And a lot of foundation brushes I can normally stretch to that 2-week period before I feel like I absolutely need to wash them. But there's something about these Sonia G Jumbo Base brushes that like after 1 or 2 uses, it's like not as good as the first one. And of course, like that makes sense, but also it's like a little bit frustrating because this is not a cheap brush, but I still really like this brush. Still the one I kind of reach for first, but there are 2 brushes that I've been also kind of reaching for fearlessly. The one that I kind of have been reaching for, I think a little bit more than my Sonia G, is the BK Beauty 101. So that's what that one looks like. And it kind of looks very similar to the Sonia G brush. It's just a lot bigger. And I think because of that size, I'm able to do my foundation very quickly with this brush because it's just kind of like boop, 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 it's done. And that's like the benefit of a bigger brush. Like it's the benefit of like having a bigger powder brush. It's the benefit of having, just a bigger brush is going to get things done a little bit faster. But still, I feel like it has enough precision. It still looks really good. And this doesn't have the same problem. Like I feel like I could use this many more times than I could use the Sonia G before I feel like I have to clean it. Now, I feel like cleaning your brushes is like all depends on who you are. My skin's not super sensitive, not acne prone, so I can get away with every 2 weeks. Some people have to wash their brushes like after every use, but I don't really think that I'm like stinky and gross. I have a lot of brushes. When I think one is dirty, I'll just start using a different one. Another brush that I really liked for foundation is the Sigma F47, which is their multitasker brush. Again, I really love this shape of foundation brush. All 3 of these have that shape. The only thing that I would say about the Sigma brush is that it's not as dense as the other 2. I feel like it gives you just like a little bit of lighter of application, which is fine. Like I'm okay with that. Typically, like rule of thumb, the denser the brush, the more coverage you're going to get from whatever product you're using it with. So denser brushes with full coverage foundations is going to give you like the most full coverage. I've been really enjoying this. I would say that the ranking is very much Sonia G first, the BK 101 second, and then the F47 third. In my like longer form video where I review everything, there's a couple brushes and foundation brush shapes that I really don't care for, and they don't look like this. There's just something to this shape of brush. I don't really know what the science is. Of course, it seems like a lot of brands have come to the conclusion that this is a good foundation brush shape. I don't know what it is about it, but it is my preferred shape of foundation brush. For concealer, the brush that I used for a really long time for my under eye concealer was the Sonia G Soft Concealer, which is a pretty standard shape. It's a domed concealer brush. Even when I reviewed this, I did like a review on this series of brushes from Sonia G. I thought both concealer brushes in the Fusion line were a little bit disappointing. I had a Sephora brush that was shaped just like this, and I thought they performed exactly the same. The only thing that would have been different, it would have been the quality of materials, but I felt like they performed the exact same. I think in that video I said, this doesn't feel like a brush upgrade to me. It felt like a very much lateral move from my Sephora brush to this brush. Not super impressed with this concealer brush as it is, but I have found a concealer brush that I'm absolutely in love with. And it is also from BK Beauty, and it is the BK Angie Hot and Flashy. So Angie Hot and Flashy is a content creator here on YouTube, and she did a collab with them. And this is the A506. And you can see it kind of has like this, it's a very similar shape to the foundation brushes, if I'm being honest. But I feel like this cut is a little more cut. I don't know if that's how they, how are brushes made? I don't know. I don't know if they're cut, but like however it's formed, it feels a little more angular than what you see on these foundation brushes. It gets right into this part of my eye, which is where I typically apply my concealer there and I just like tap it out. And that's mostly the amount of concealer I use. I don't do a lot of spot concealing, and I just find that this works so perfectly. Just gets up in there and it blends everything out beautifully. I feel like there was one concealer that I tried this with that I didn't really care for it being with, but for almost every concealer I use is this. It's this brush, and it's going to be the brush I reach for first. And luckily, I have two of them. I love them. Okay, let's talk about cream contour. I know that not everyone cream contours, and maybe many people wouldn't have like a specific brush for cream contour, but I do. And back in the day, I was trying to find a purpose for the Jumbo Concealer from Sonia G, which is shaped like this. The conclusion I drew whenever I originally reviewed the Fusion series is that this is designed for spot concealing. I don't spot conceal. Even if I have a blemish, I don't normally bother spot concealing. And that's just both laziness, but also I just feel like it doesn't work. Like, I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. But I don't want anyone who does spot conceal to feel self-conscious about it. It's just, to me, it's like, I would rather have like a smoother overall base with some unevenness than like different levels of coverage. It's just not for me. It's not what I do. I found that this was really nice because it flat on the one side was really great for putting cream contour and concentrating right here. And then I would blend it out with this mud makeup brush that I had from when I was in beauty school, but I have since decluttered that brush. It's no longer with me. It got decluttered the second that my new brush came into town. Actually, right now, this brush doesn't serve a lot of purpose for me. Like, I could use it on the under eye. I think I'm going to try that. I never really tried it at first. I bought two concealer brushes and I was like, I have to reason why the brand would have two concealer brushes. Why does Sonia G have two concealer brushes? But the brush that replaced this is the BK Beauty 112, and that's this. So it's a really small angle brush. Now, I believe that like if you go to BK Beauty's website, they sell this as a blush brush, and I also use it for blush. And we'll talk about blush brushes in a second, but I really like this because I feel like I can very concentrated get cream contour and start blending it out simultaneously with this brush. It's so perfect, especially with the formula I've been using for cream contour, which is Intuition from Ritual Defee. It just picks up this product really beautifully and it makes it really easy to contour. Stunning. The only thing that I wouldn't do is like nose contour. I mean, you could, like, it just wouldn't be very condensed. It wouldn't be very saturated on the nose, which I think is like what people who nose contour really want. I just love the size of it. It's just so perfect just for getting in there, as opposed to something larger for like a powder contour. I'm like, it's just like, I don't need that much coverage for contour. This just does just the right amount. For powder bronzer, I maintain loyal, but I still love the brush that I've been using for powder bronzer for a while. And the brush that I love is the Sonia G Jumbo Bronzer Brush. I just love the density of this. It always picks up the right amount of bronzer, blends it out super seamlessly. It just is that girl and has been that girl for me for a really long time. I just love this brush. Now, I have been sent a couple bronzer brushes that I think were trying to dupe that. This style of brush, I think, was really popularized by Tom Ford. I bought this when this came out, and I think that was early 2023 when this came out. Either way, I started looking for that Tom Ford brush, but they make it now with synthetic fibers as opposed to natural fibers. So I do tend to prefer a natural fiber brush. But what BK is kind of showing me is that it doesn't matter for everything. In fact, I think synthetic brushes are nicer for like cream products for sure. And that's kind of been my overall findings here. But I was sent this brush from rephr. It's the rephr 22. You can see that they're kind of similar. I think this brush has been out longer than the Sonia G brush. So probably trying to dupe the Tom Ford. The thing about this brush, which is very similar, it like is very similar. I don't like the handle on this. And that's really what's getting me down. There's no point in buying a rephr brush unless it's on sale. So perhaps if you were interested in this, but you were okay with, you like this handle, this could be a good alternative. Never buy a rephr brush at full price. They put up this like imaginary full price, but they go on sale all of the time. Sonia G doesn't really go on sale though. Most you can get on a Sonia G brush is like when Beautylish is doing their spend $100, get a $20 gift card. That's like the best you could do. But the Sonia G brushes, I really love them. I know that we're kind of talking about some Sonia G brushes that have been dethroned in this video. Still think they're really good, but my first introduction into Sonia G were the Fusion brushes, and I only own a couple of brushes that aren't in that line, and I'm just kind of finding that for cream products, I think I do prefer synthetic brushes. For cream bronzer, I was going back to Sonia G. I've been using this Sonia G Classic Base Brush. Now, not specifically designed for cream bronzer, but it is designed to pick up cream product. I really liked this for a really long time, and it was my favorite way to apply cream bronzers until this mammoth thing came into my life. And if you missed how this came into my life, my friend Khaki, I did this video called Becoming Khaki Reviews Beauty, and she used this in the video that I was replicating the look from. And I just was like, that brush is so big. But that size is to its benefit, especially with cream bronzer, because there's so much space. When you swirl your brush, it's not picking up a ton of product. And when you apply it to your face, it like beautifully disperses the perfect amount of cream product. Whereas sometimes with this brush, I felt like I was picking up so much a concentration of bronzer that whenever I would try to blend it out, it would blend out pretty well. But I just felt like I would always get more than I wanted to. But for cream bronzer, I've just kind of converted to this completely. BK sent me in PR most of the brushes I'm talking about, but I did purchase this one myself a long time ago. Well, like, you know, a while ago. I think I don't remember what year I did it, but like I did buy this one with my money and I don't regret it. For cream blush, I was using the mini base from Sonia G. And it works really well. And sometimes I still bounce back to it, but BK Beauty sent me the 109 brush, which I think is it's a mini foundation brush. That's what they call it, the mini foundation brush. I love this for cream blush. The only downside to it is some cream blushes that come in pots, this is a little bit too big to get into like the like a phytosurgeon's. Like you can get it in there, but it takes a little finessing. I don't know what it is about this brush, but it's like perfect for me in cream blush. It like picks up just the right amount. And just like with the other fusion brush from Sonia G, like the classic base, sometimes I would just get too much pigment with this. So a lot of times I would pick up product and then I would dab off excess on the back of my hand and then apply it to my face. I don't have to do that with the BK brush. It really just, it's like you put it boop, 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 and it's just perfect. So like, because of how wide it is and how like less dense this is, I think it just picks up the right amount of blush for me and what I'm looking for whenever I am using a cream product. It just really, really does the trick. Let's talk about powder blush brushes. I still kind of use my favorites. Not much has changed, but I've added like a new favorite to the rotation. So my favorite, this you can't buy anymore. This is the Lotus Cheek from Sonia G. Has the most beautiful handle. And then that is the shape of the brush. I prefer this for something that I know does not have a ton of pigment in the blush, which I don't always think that less pigmentation is necessarily bad. But this one picks up a good amount of product and blends it on seamlessly. And like, you don't really have to like go back in multiple times because some blush brushes I feel like aren't as densely packed. And then when they're not as densely packed, it just requires a little more work. Just kind of how like this foundation brush applies my foundation really quickly. It's like this will apply my blush really quickly. The only thing is if I am using a really pigmented formula, it tends to be a little bit too much, but I have two solutions for that. This one, I also think this is discontinued. So this is from Sephora and it was from their old line of brushes and it was their Pro Angled Diffuser. And what this is, it's kind of like a stippling angle brush and it's super not too dense. Like you wouldn't want to use this for a foundation or like really contour. What this does is like when you tap this into a really pigmented powder blush, it kind of only gets on like the stippling part and then it blends things in really beautifully. So if I'm afraid of a powder blush, I typically will grab this. Like if I've seen other people use a formula before I get to it and I've seen that it's really, really pigmented on them, I'm like, okay, we're going to start with this one and then we can try other brushes. But this one's really good. Unfortunately, you can't get your hands on either of the two I mentioned. But this last one, they still make, and I've already talked about it. It's the BK112. I use those for contour as well. Kind of the same thing for contour. It's a really great brush to keep the blush where you want it because it's so pinpoint. But another thing about them, it's not super densely packed. So it doesn't pick up like a ton of product either. So it's not like you're putting it in the blush and then you're like picking up a ton of product and then it's like really hard to blend out. It just like grabs just enough. I got this around the same time I got my Valentino blush, like that purple blush, and like those two are a match made in heaven. Like I love to use this brush with that blush. So great. But I find these really handy. And I have a feeling if you do buy this brush or you have this brush and you haven't figured out what to use it for, like you haven't figured out the perfect thing, just try a bunch of stuff. Just try a bunch of stuff with it. I think you'll find something that this brush will be really useful for. Powder highlighters. I only have one powder highlighter brush that I really love. I've been sent a couple recently, but I still always come back to this. And it's from Sonia G. It is the Soft Cheek. You might be noticing here is that I really prefer my Sonia G brushes for powders, the ones that are made for powders. And what I like about this is that it's not super densely packed, and this is really great for controlling how much highlighter you're applying. And since I still like wearing highlighter, but I don't like to wear as much highlighter as I once did, it is kind of big, right? I've been talking about precision this whole time. However, I find that with like a very softly applied highlighter, it getting into your blush a little bit more is totally fine and kind of like blends things together a little bit better. Because highlighter is supposed to highlight things, the point of your cheek that is getting the most light is still going to get the most light and reflect the highlighter back. So it's not like you're really missing. Does that make sense? It's kind of just like, it still lands where it needs to land. It looks really beautiful. I just, you know, sweeping it on. It works really well. And that's really the only powder highlighter brush that I like to use. For cream highlighters, I used to use my hands all the time. I don't mind using my hands when I don't mind. Sometimes I do. And this is for the moments where I do. And it's the BK109. I talked about this earlier with cream blush, but I also like it for cream highlighter too. My Auric Glow Lust, my Torch Lumiere, I've just used it with all of them and I just... So again, it's not super concentrated about like its size wise, right? Because it's like not like really pinpointing it like a finger would be able to pinpoint. But again, I kind of just like that highlighter will get kind of like all over my cheek and make it really glowy. Another thing I have been doing more recently is putting my cream highlighter down kind of like all over this area before I put my blush and bronzer on. And it's really perfect for that. Like it just kind of gets it all right in there because it's a mini foundation brush. And so it works really well. I really love it for cream highlighter too. Let's talk about powder brushes. So for the longest time I had been using, and I'm giving this one away because it has been dethroned, but I think this was from a set from, I don't even remember, but my friend LeMay, I think, gave this to me in a Secret Santa in this makeup group that I used to be in. And we're all still friends, but it's just like, it's like this time of the past. We'll have to talk about the honeys again someday. But we did like a Secret Santa swap situation. And I think LeMay sent this to me with a group of other brushes. I still have some of the brushes still in my collection, but I was using that for powder for a long time. And I just felt like I could upgrade that. And now I don't always feel compelled to upgrade my brushes, by the way, like, but it's like, I had that powder brush and it's like, I have all these beautiful brushes. It's like, well, how is that still the powder brush that I'm using? And so the brush I'm about to show you is ridiculously expensive. However, I was gifted it and I have been using it, and well, I'll tell you all the good things about it, but I can't like in good conscience recommend this as a brush to buy. It would be a great gift for someone, but also, it's really expensive. It's this surratt. I think it's just kind of like an all-over face brush. It doesn't have what it's called on it, but it is absolutely the softest brush I own. Bar none, the softest brush I own. And I just feel like it applies powders so beautifully. However, I'm going to also give you an option. That is what I use for powder the most. Again, gifted to me. It's pretty unrealistic to buy a $240 powder brush. That's a lot of money. And it's not like it does a million things. That's kind of that's the thing that brush does. I was gifted it. Very thankful that was gifted to me by the brand. But let me give you another option. I've really also been enjoying the F25 brush from Sigma. It's a newer love. I have been grabbing this relatively recently for powder for nostalgic reasons. The first powder brush I ever had was a MAC brush that was shaped exactly like this. Also super soft and also can sweep powder on just as beautifully. So I reach for this quite a bit too, but I do reach for my surratt one a lot more. But this one's also very nice, and I did want to give an option that wasn't $240. Well, sometimes I feel like I have lost touch. I haven't lost touch with the fact that $240 is very expensive for a brush. Listen, I love quality things. I love a quality brush. Sonia G brushes are not inexpensive, and are arguably none of the brushes I've talked about are super inexpensive. That's just like astronomical. I don't know which brush I actually paid the most money for out of my own pocket, but I think it's one of these two, either the Jumbo Base or the Jumbo Bronzer from Sonia G. These are both ones that I purchased myself, and I think they're both around the $80 mark. So yeah, I've never paid $250 for a brush. That's a lot of money. I have paid a lot of money for brushes all at once, but never that much for just one. Let's talk about pencil brushes, which don't come up too often, but I have. Let's talk about pencil brushes really quick. I don't always use pencil brushes, but I have found a really good use for them that is so perfect for me. And I was recently gifted two that have knocked my socks off. So the one I was using for a long time was this Sephora brush, and it was this pencil brush. I received it in gratis when I worked at Sephora. So another brush I didn't pay for. Just like, Tom's a fraud. Tom's never paid for a brush in their whole life. No, I have bought brushes before. It was like in a collection. They would often do this where I think they would take like the testers and they would give some of us a brush from that collection. So like someone probably has like a foundation brush that was with this. So fine enough. Sephora brushes, I think, are of really great quality. I had more at one point, and then I got rid of a few of them only because I found brushes that I liked a little bit better. And now here I am doing a brush review video, and it's like I'm probably going to have to buy those brushes again. I was gifted two brushes from rephr that have really blown me away, and here they are. So this is the bigger of the two is the number 3, and the smaller of the two is the number 23. And I use these for smudging out eyeliner. Now I have other flat brushes for like smudging out liner. Nothing compares. These work so well with the Victoria Beckham Satin Kajal eyeliners, which is my eyeliner of choice, and they blend out so perfectly. I use these instead of the smudger on the other side of the eyeliner, because these are so much better. These don't tug on my eyes like that. They have the right amount of density to blend the creaminess of the eyeliner out before it sets. Excellent. Excellent. And also, if you have smaller eyes, these are going to be really, really useful to you. Like I'll do like a little wing and I'll just smudge out the wing with these two. Typically I do use the 23 the most, the smaller of the two, but I also use the 3 as well. Brilliant. My first sent me, a handful of brushes to try. And these are the two that I reach for the most from rephr, like by far. When it comes to powder matte eyeshadows, I'm still really loyal to my Wayne Goss brushes. Now, these are the old Wayne Goss brushes. He recently launched a new line of brushes, which I have not tried yet. I think I'm going to because, well, what is his vision for a brush now and what are those shapes like? These were like the first fancy brushes I ever bought. I bought one of the 16 brushes really early on, and then I bought his whole set later. And they just blend matte eyeshadows just perfectly, and they make my eyeshadows work exactly the way I want to. And unfortunately, they don't sell these particular ones anymore, so I can't speak to the quality of the new ones, but I will say these are the eyeshadow brushes that I've had the longest in my collection, and they still perform the best for me. rephr, BK, they don't do it for me. These ones still do it for me the most, and I thank them for that. And that's also something to be said also, is like if you take care of your brushes, if you do invest in brushes, whether you're buying a $30 brush as an investment or a $100 or $240 brush as an investment, if you take care of them, they're going to last a really long time. I've had these brushes, one of them for 7 years, and I still have it, and it's still one of the brushes I reach for the most frequently. It's a very reliable set of brushes. I've not tried Sonia G eyeshadow brushes for powders yet, but that's on my to-do list as well. Considering I have so much Sonia G for my face, I do want to try the eyeshadow brushes to see if they compare. Now, when it comes to a shimmer formula for eyeshadows, I have really liked this one from Surratt, and I think it's their medium-sized, just regular eyeshadow brush. It's a flat shader brush, but it's not as dense as many shader brushes that I have tried before. I don't know what it does. I don't know how it picks up shimmer, and I don't know that they particularly designed this brush for shimmer. It just does the most gentle application of shimmer, and while I'm not always looking for that, it is nice to have something to apply shimmers to my eyes besides my fingers, because I will sometimes apply shimmers with other brushes, but like nothing has really done as well as this brush has done for me. Again, it kind of does a light wash, But it just does it so beautifully. Like, I feel like every time I apply a shimmer with this brush, it's so ethereal looking. It's like, oh, that was perfect. That was just perfect. It was just perfect. So I don't really have a brush that I was using before, but this brush is, I every time I get to like the shimmer part of my eyeshadow, this is the brush that I have been reaching for recently. And I didn't have a brush for that before. So that's great. Finally, when it comes to cream eyeshadows, which I'm kind of like newer to the cream shadow game, and I had trouble with brushes with cream shadows for a while because I wasn't really using cream shadows, and I would buy a cream shadow or be gifted a cream shadow and I would be like, I guess I use my fingers. And that's what I did most of the time, like just kind of like blend them out with my finger. The BK eyeshadow brushes, I don't love them for powders, but I really love these for creams. It's the 201 and the 202. And with my Victoria Beckham eyeshadow sticks, with any eyeshadow stick, these have been really, really useful. And I was trying out the Danessa Myricks Groundwork palette, and it worked really well with the creams in there. There's something about these that they are just dense enough for creams to blend out, but not so dense that the blend ends up being like funky at all. They work really well. It's unexpected because that's not what I would have used these for. I didn't really care for these eyeshadow brushes for powders. I felt like I didn't have as much control as I did with the Wayne Goss brushes with the same formulas that I would be using. But for creams, baby, they really do it for me. And I think this has also like turned the beat around for me. Like, I got into creams last year, late last year, and that's when I got a bunch of cream eyeshadows. And then these brushes came to me in December. And kind of it all coalesced into this beautiful relationship where I'm like, I do like cream eyeshadows. Because I think that whenever these blend them out, it really thins out the formula. And whenever the thinner application you apply of like a cream like that, the less it's going to crease because it's just like such a thin veil of application. And I think that these do a really good job in that. I think I would probably buy more of those just to have on hand for when I'm using a lot of cream shadows, which sometimes I'm a cream shadow mood, sometimes I'm a powder shadow mood, but like, you know, flip flop back and forth. It's nice to have a couple more. So I think I'm going to buy some more of those BK brushes, but that's that. So those are the brushes that I've currently been loving, the ones that I've been obsessed with. And as you can see, it's not like, you saw a lot of BK Beauty, but that tended to be for the face brushes. And then you saw a lot of Sonia G for the face powders. And then for the eyes, it was all kind of different. So you saw a little bit of each brand that has sent me PR. I have found a favorite in, which is why I think that the grand thesis of the final eyeshadow brush video is going to be like, I do not recommend you make a set from a specific brand because I don't think each brand is going to be able to offer you everything you want in every single brush. And it's good to brand hop. Because I thought I was going to be a Sonia G devotee. And what I have found is that Sonia G doesn't always do it for me. And that's okay. That's okay. It's like not shaming any of these brands. And it's also not to shame you if you like some of the brushes that I have moved out, or if you use brushes that I didn't even talk about in this video. As long as they are working for you, then those are the right brushes for you. Anyway, so I hope I found this helpful if you were just kind of curious about what brushes I was using. There you go. That's that. That wraps up this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you are new to my channel and you've never watched another video from me, my videos tend to be about loving my makeup collection as it currently is, while being cynical and critical of new makeup releases. What I really want to do is help myself and help you be more discerning about the makeup and makeup tools that we are purchasing. There's a lot of new releases that come out and we see them and we get really excited about them. And what I try to do for myself and for you is to like dim that excitement a little bit, because it's like, it's really exciting when you see a new launch that you think is going to work for you, but you probably think that that thing's going to work for you because there's something in your collection that already does that works for you. So I do a lot of reflecting on like new releases with critical sass. And then I do this thing called the after sass where I take the stuff that I talk about in critical sass, I look in my collection and see what I have, what's close to it. And, you know, and then I just do a lot of videos where I'm just using my makeup just to play with it. That's what I do. I would love to have you subscribe if you're into that. Make sure you like this video, comment, and share. I'm also on patreon.com and I have channel memberships. They both are the same. So if you join one, you don't need to join the other. You don't need to join either. Patreon and memberships are just a way to support me. It's not the right way to support me. It's not a better way to support me. It's just a different way to support me. So if you're liking, commenting, and watching my videos all the way through, that's the best way to support my channel. I do an additional video over there every single month. And then I also have my podcast with Khaki of Khaki Reviews Beauty, and that's released weekly. So that's all that. I think I said everything I had to say. So remember to follow your haute and you'll find me. And I'll see you in a video very soon. Go forth, tits out. Bye-bye.